What's up, everybody? Welcome to Shared Screens Media Club, a one-stop shop for discussions on movies, video games, TV shows, really any story that you don't get on paper because fuck books. Today, we are back with a brand new Marvel Disney Plus show in She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Joining me for the discussion on the pilot episode, A Normal Amount of Rage, is Alec Bobko.
Hello.
And Liar Liar Jim Tasty, aka Bret Jamerson.
Objection!
Liaren is in the process of
Overruled.
moving, and her setup is not ready yet, so she will be missing out on this first episode. But luckily, we got 9 of these episodes. They're short. This one was only about 40 minutes. Guys, what did you think of the pilot?
I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm as most people know, I'm very lighthearted person. So I love the comedies, the action kind of stuff. So this being a good blend of comedy and having that nice little bit of action, I really enjoyed it. I've known nothing about She-Hulk. I don't read the comics, so this is really my introduction to her. And I loved the fourth wall breaks. I loved the whole oh, you're actually watching the show. You don't care about this lawyer stuff right now. You want to know how this happened. So I love that intro.
Yeah, and I legit just finished it 10 minutes ago, because of the way my schedule worked out today. And I really liked them kind of doing the origin story pretty fast, but then kind of focusing on this dynamic and how they're kind of showing us that she doesn't really want this for herself. I'm also kind of a fan in some ways of how they're just yada-yadaing some stuff with the Hulk, which I'm okay with sometimes. I do think that sometimes with extended universes, you do get into this endless loop of well, you met that character, so now that character needs their own series, but inherently in that character series, you're going to meet more people, and then they get their own series, and suddenly, you're watching a 4-part Disney Plus series on Obi-Wan's great uncle or something like that, and you don't know how you got there. So I'm cool with them just being yeah, no, this is where I merged Hulk and Banner. This is a thing I made. My arm is healing because your genetics are better than mine. I don't need the science. I believe it.
Well, they just button things up.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bret.
I would say I love the minutia just as much as anybody. I'm all about the lore, but like you said, I'm glad they didn't get bogged down in that arm thing with Bruce. They just were hey, we fixed it, we're moving on. Because it would be kind of weird if they were if they
spent an entire episode
dedicated, an hour on
It'd be weird if
why
they dedicated time to it. And I also think at some point they have to give you some type of an ex machina to get his arms back working, so you do not have a Hulk that is permanently in this sling.
Yeah. Or can't Hulk.
Yeah. So I do like the way that they went about that, because I'm a big lore guy too, but at some point the lore needs to end. More things need to kind of take what Pym particles do and just kind of half explain it, even though the math doesn't add up. It's my favorite thing about Pym particles. Not even Hank Pym really gets how they work, but they work.
Yeah, I don't see it as breaking the lore, more just buttoning it up, because they know people are going to be asking those questions.
And the thing is, the logic behind it adds up. Something about her genetics is better, which also plays into why she has a different relationship with her Hulkness. I don't know what you call it, with her Hulk situation. And that also plays into Bruce being able to heal himself. So you said that you're not a comics person. I don't know too much about Jennifer in the comics. I know kind of the basics. In the comics, what the origin story is that I think she gets shot and she goes to the hospital and needs a full-on blood transfusion from Bruce.
Gotcha.
Now, the thing I don't know is if they've also explained something about her genetics being better as to why her Hulk situation works out easier than Bruce's, or maybe it's kind of like a secondhand thing where she didn't get exposed to the gamma radiation up front, but she got it through the blood transfusion, so that kind of makes everything a little bit more mild and controllable. Kind of like the inverse of the Thing, because he was outside of the spaceship, so he's always in his little monster form, but everyone's inside the spaceship, so they just get powers.
Yeah.
And then I do know that she breaks the fourth wall in the comic. I've heard mixed things about that. So everybody knows Deadpool straight up breaks the fourth wall. He narrates, he talks to you, even and in like Deadpool kills the Marvel universe, like it ends with him getting out of the comic book and going to kill the writers. Like that's how meta Deadpool has gotten. With She-Hulk, I've heard she breaks the fourth wall and she addresses the audience, but I've also heard it's more like she understands she's in a comic book. It's kind of how like some things in horror are always very meta, that the people are aware they're in horror movies, or that what they're going through is like a horror movie and they use that to their advantage. But I like the way they're going about it, where she's talking to the camera, but they're also not doing a thing of like, who are you talking to? And they're not overdoing it. I think they're using it just the right amount.
Yeah, I loved how she like physically had to go back into like her office by herself to address the audience. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna like hit on that more, because Bruce kind of noticed it when she did it in the training montage, but she also seemed weirded out by that. So it does seem like this is like part of her power, which is interesting to say the least. But I mean, I'm for it. You know, comics are weird mediums at the end of the day. You get stuff like that, and so I'm happy that they're not holding back and being like, well, that's too weird for us to do as the MCU that's trying to be very grounded or whatever.
Now,
Yeah, fuck it.
I had a thought.
Okay.
Is she talking to her Hulk persona?
Interesting.
I don't think she has one.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think canonically there is no Hulk for Jennifer Walters. It is just her in a super strength form.
I guess that would make sense, because like you were saying, she wasn't like fully exposed to the gamma radiation.
Well, I mean, now to be fair, there have been other multiple Hulks. The other one I know is Adameus Cho. I do not know his origin story off the top of my head. I do not know how exposed to gamma he was, but he can very much control his Hulk. Now, I don't know if that means that his Hulk is or isn't a separate personality, but I know that he basically has like full control of it, and it kind of upsets Bruce a little.
I mean, you didn't see that in this episode with
in this episode, I really like the different dynamics that were at play between them, because I feel like they're both valid in different reasons, where she's saying, listen, I don't want to do this. I don't want this to affect my life the way it did yours. I've seen what you've went through. I should be lucky that I don't have to necessarily deal with it the same way as you, that I have kind of a little bit more control over it. But he also does have a point in being like, this is still a bigger deal than you're making it out to be. Even if you are already where I am from day one, we still need to like get a handle on this, because it's not an easy thing to think about. And if anyone finds out, this is going to be dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. So like, I kind of understood where both were coming from. And I guess it goes back to that theme of what Hulk was telling her, that two things can both be true and not objective. They could counteract each other, but both be true at the same time. Whatever that therapy he was talking about was.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting where the show starts off with her kind of giving that, like what argument
great
or
power,
whatever.
great responsibility.
Yeah, kind of like a Spider-Man, but like then she gets the powers.
It was kind of like what they had
like,
Martin Sheen do in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, where we're going to basically say with great power comes great responsibility, but we're not going to say with great power comes great responsibility. We're going to kind of break down what that means.
Yeah, and so they play with that, but then when she gets the power, she doesn't want that responsibility, but it's one of those things of like, and Hulk goes into this like, you have
but listen,
this
hear me
and
out.
It's not going away. Like,
let's assume that trial got interrupted and everyone finds out she's a Hulk. Just to go back to that trial, you know, they're like, we're gonna do the closing arguments at a separate date because this trial's been interrupted. She can use what she did in that courtroom to basically prove the closing argument she's making to the jury. And she's like, I have this ability, and so I inherently have to use it. And so should whoever this person we're suing is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also very happy that her hulking out in court, because it was very obvious that was what was going to happen, you know, with the way the training montage ends. And she's like, you know, no one's ever going to find out. And then we see her in court. I'm very happy that it was her being like, oh, I need to Hulk out right now to save these people. I thought it was going to be one of two things where someone was going to get under her skin, either in a personal way, like when that guy that she worked with was like, don't screw this up, Walters. Fuck that guy. Or I thought that, like, have you ever seen the meme that's like, how do lawyers argue without crying?
No.
It's one of those things where it's like, it is hard to argue law because not only can you be like, listen here, dickhead, to the opposing side, you have to maintain your composure, even if the person is basically, debating that this person does not deserve rights or the ability to live or something that like really that you truly, truly believe in and is truly fucked up. So I was worried that she was going to like have like an outburst in court and that she was going to Hulk out. But I'm actually really happy with the way they did it because they are also addressing the fact of, that, and I'm not going to speak on this too much just because I feel like I can't, but like how women have to control their rage better than men. Because if men rage out, it's usually not seen as, it's either it's not going to be seen as a big deal, or if everyone agrees that a man has a bad temper, he's just looked at as like, oh, that's a dude with a really bad temper. Don't get on his bad side. If you have a boss that yells, everybody just hates him. But with women specifically, not only does, expressing their anger sometimes put them in physical danger if it happens like something on the street, they're going to be called erratic or bitchy or all these other things that have been kind of used to put down these very valid emotions. But I do not know if that is a thing. And like, I don't know if the comics has ever given that as a reason as to why she's a little bit more zen with her Hulk. But I do like that they're kind of taking that angle with it.
Well, that, and she also said that being a lawyer just has a big aspect to that because she
that is
literally
definitely
says,
part of
"Or
it
I'll
too."
get murdered."
Oh, see, I assumed that was more about the cat calling thing. Like if she yells at a guy who
Oh
cat
no,
calls
I
her,
took that
he
as
might.
the lawyer because if she's like, she's for the district attorney's office, like.
But the thing is, like, as a prosecutor, realistically, your life is always a little bit more in danger because there are going to be people from that you've tried to put away or are part of their same group or gang. I don't want to use any words that like make it sound like any criminal's inherently an evil person, but you know what I'm saying. As a defense attorney, your life is always actually in risk a little bit. So I took that specifically to catcalling, where she can get angry in court. It might not look good for her as a lawyer, and but I took the murder thing as like, oh, if someone catcalls her and she freaks out at them, how do you know that person's not going to pull out a weapon or just physically attack you?
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I do like that it was up for interpretation. I also did like kind of getting this extra look at Bruce that we haven't seen in the MCU before.
Yeah.
Where we found out that he spent 5 years building this lab and also zenning out. It does sound like he misses Tony and Steve a lot, which is sweet in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it sounded like that Tony just kind of had this place, and kind of Banner just kind of made some modifications to it. Nothing.
It sounded like it was a mix of both, where like Tony was like, here's a place for you to hide and zen out, but also a lab for you to focus on the Hulk. Yeah. And Banner kind of took building the bar as like something to do to keep him calm, like how some people find gardening very calming or woodworking very calming. That was his. And I think it also gave you a little bit of insight into Tony's mindset after the blip, because he said Tony just kind of sat and drank and complained. And, the MCU's been always a little bit afraid to touch on Tony's alcoholism just because of, trying to keep it. I don't know how much they want to keep things family friendly anymore. Because, like, we got talks about sex. We got them calling each other dicks. We got her flipping him off. Like,
almost got an F-bomb in the post-credit scene.
Yeah, the MCU has not let anybody drop an F-bomb yet, although PG-13 movies are all allowed one. They're allowed one, guys.
We're going to get one someday.
Deadpool 3, right?
I was just going to say,
Deadpool's going to be R. That movie's going to start with the word fuck. Also, just quick thing.
Yeah.
I remember when they said that No Way Home was going to pick up right where Far From Home left off. Somebody said that the first line of No Way Home should just be, huh.
Yeah. I remember hearing that, yep.
Yeah. But yeah, that was one of my favorite aspects of this show, even before this episode aired, was like the stuff we were going to get with Bruce. just because with the whole like Universal deal, like we're not going to get a solo Hulk project, and so this is like their way of like kind of skirting around those rules and adding more to that part of the character and that part of the world and stuff. So it was super interesting to see where Bruce was at, some of the connections with Tony, what he was doing between the blip,
Yeah.
and then there like he had a Sicarian helmet, which like he must have like he knew all about this stuff that he didn't know before, so he definitely was like
Where
not
was the
just
Sicarian helmet?
in his like apartment or like
I
his
thought that was an Iron Man helmet.
Yeah, that's what I
no,
thought.
it was like in the background.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
gotcha.
Yeah,
'Cause I know he has like that busted Iron Man helmet on his
the
mantle.
Ultron helmet, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was cool to see him like obviously between Infinity War and Endgame he was making Smart Hulk, but he was also doing so much more stuff. So it was very cool to see like
I also like the whole thing of you never get to choose these names,
Yeah.
which is true because in the comics the version of Hulk that has Banner's mind is referred to as Professor Hulk, but the MCU has chosen to call theirs Smart Hulk because it's more of a merger rather than just a smart version of Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also going to explain, there's a lot of characters in the comics that come from different marginalized groups that have kind of sexist names in some ways, or sometimes racist names, etc. And so I think it explains why she's going to be referred to as She-Hulk, because rather than inventing a new name, but also not calling the show Jennifer Walters, it's going to go back to hey, people are calling you that. It's fucked up. Sorry about that. And she will never go by She-Hulk. She will go by Jennifer Walters to anyone who knows her, but we get an in-universe use of the name. And it kind of, the title of the show kind of justifies itself.
Mm-hmm.
Quick circling back to Banner. Like I thought it was just really cool how like even when he's like dying after the crash, or not dying, but he's like bleeding out profusely. He still has the wherewithal to be like, I'm bleeding, get away from me.
Get away from me, yeah. Which, yeah,
like
I knew that it was going to happen with a blood transfusion, but I didn't think just like a few drops into.
I mean,
her
there's more
open
than a few
wound.
drops. He was bleeding pretty good from that arm.
Yeah, but it's not that it got on her; it's that it got in her because she also had an open wound.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't say that. Like, just most people when they're bleeding or injured like that, they just either unconscious from all that blood loss.
Speaking of that scene,
oh yeah,
do you think we're gonna? What do you think the ship was there for?
he said it was a message. I've just
So
But, do you think we're gonna circle back to that? We're gonna come back to because he said it's probably a message from Sakaar, and he'll get back to that later.
do you already know where it might lead?
I know what the theory is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
haven't heard.
You don't? All
okay,
right.
so there's like a whole comic storyline where Hulk has a son when he's on Sakaar, and so
And the son's name is Sakaar.
and so so that might be what they're leading into,
Gotcha.
obviously, but I don't think they'll go into it. I don't think they're going to go into it too much in this show, just because it's a She-Hulk show, and even though Bruce is a big part of
I
it,
think what's going to happen is at some point he's going to be like, I need to circle back on whatever that was and leave. Maybe he'll leave Earth completely, or at least leave LA. So he's away for most of the show. He comes back like in the finale, and he introduces his son to Jennifer, which is one, just going to be hilarious. Two, that episode better end with the Hulk and then cut to credits.
have you ever seen the movie Brother Grimsby?
I have not.
Okay. The way that Jennifer Walters gets like the Hulk powers kind of remind me of a scene from that movie, and it's with what's his face, Sacha Baron Cohen, where Daniel Radcliffe gets a certain disease where like it's just this freak accident. Like it was like in terms of her getting the powers, like obviously it was like I thought this first episode did a great job of just like yada yadaing a lot of things, but in an efficient way that didn't like cheapen all of these
None
different
of the
points and developments.
I feel like I should have made that clear before. When I said it yada yadas it doesn't focus on it, but every explanation they give makes sense.
Yeah. And I think yada
Yep.
yada can be good. And so,
Same.
even though I probably would like the original like comic interpretation of like the, getting shot or some
A
sort of
full-on blood transfusion.
yeah. It was just a quick little way, but yeah,
When this scene got released last week and I saw the car crash, and because they put so much emphasis on the car crash, I thought basically instead of having her get shot, they were just going to have the car crash be so bad she needed the transfusion, and that it was going to be such an emergency that Bruce was right there that he had to be the one to give it. But yeah, they did it more in like okay, he bled on you for a few seconds.
he's like,
Also,
for me, but it's like he's like laying on top of her. It's like, bro, it's too late for
yeah.
that.
I also really liked their training montage and stuff, and just like how much of a natural she is at it. But I also did like that they showed that there were some stuff that she didn't fully know yet, like with the clap, which also I think this is the first time we've seen Hulk do the clap move since the Incredible Hulk.
Did he? No. Yeah, I was thinking of Age of Ultron, but him and Tony. I was gonna say
Yeah, it was just the
fist,
punch.
but they punch each other.
Yeah, no.
Which, if you notice, like, because like if you remember from Hulk or the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, that they use the sound machines, and it's like you could tell that he was a bit sensitive to those her thunderclaps.
Mm-hmm.
You're muted.
Well, because hers kept coming and coming.
I like the high like speed of it as opposed to doing like one big one like we saw.
Yeah,
in
it's like that they're
Incredible Hulk.
equals, but their powers work differently was a really cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like how he just threw that one giant boulder
and it like
disintegrated,
exploded in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I feel like that was an effect that was added in because when that scene originally got leaked, or not leaked, but like shown in trailers, and he just yeets it into the sky, I remember people being like, imagine just like being on your way to work and a fucking boulder lands on your car.
Right.
Yeah. So I think they were like, oh yeah, let's have it explode in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode. I mean,
It was a really good pilot. I'm just trying to think like what else we kind of discussed on.
We haven't really talked about Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters. Have we?
She's great.
I thought she was awesome. I thought the energy to that character, she totally brought what was needed. I thought her relationship with like Mark Ruffalo, Bruce, like I thought was great in terms of that like kind of bickering vibe.
There was a really good dynamic there, and I hope there is more to it because there's the one thing where she said something about like, oh, do I have to be like you and have this decades worth of trauma and I seclude myself? Or she said something about the fact that like he wasn't around a lot after the incident.
Like around the family.
Understandably so. But that doesn't mean that it didn't maybe hurt. And like we got the vibe that they were fairly close. I mean, I'm very, very close with a lot of my cousins, but to my understanding or how I've seen from other friends of mine, that is very much a cultural thing of like why I'm so close with my cousins because the way my family has always operated. But these are also cousins I'm talking about that live only 15, 20 minutes away from me. Cousins that live across the country, not as close with, naturally, just from proximity. Yeah. So I got the vibe that they were very close and they spoke to each other the way siblings do. And if you get close enough with a cousin, they basically become a sibling. You don't mind fighting and bickering and stuff like that. And that time, like when they got into that little fight at the end, that was a really good like middle ground between they're testing each other / they're play fighting / there's actual anger behind this. Mm-hmm. So I really do like their dynamic, but I do hope that they do kind of address it more of, maybe Bruce was really the only one she ever had. Maybe the other cousins never understood her or understood why she wanted to go do something, let's say, more academic like law. But Bruce was always the scientist one, and then he wasn't there. Or maybe their family went through something and she had to handle it on her own. Like, I think that there is a lot of tapped potential there. Not that I need the whole show to become a family drama of the Hulks, but I do think that there's something there that they can work with.
Mm-hmm. Another thing too is they kind of started to dive in. I mean, it's always been a part of the character in the MCU iteration, but like the different personalities of Bruce and the Hulk, and even with like some of the comic origins of Bruce having like a personality disorder,
Oh
which is
no, yeah, like
why
even in the
his
comics, it's
version
pretty
of the
well
Hulk
established
manifests
that
that way. Yeah.
yeah, in the comics, it's pretty well established that the Hulk is his own being as far as like consciousness goes. They're kind of sharing one mind. Sometimes they both, they might interact or they'll both have control or at least will remember what went on to an extent.
The one
But
hand
that
on
the
the
whole
wheel.
yeah, one hand on the wheel thing. But the Hulk is very much his own being. There's even a thing where after what Spider-Man did in No Way Home is based off something in the comics and stuff like that. And there's a comic panel that's went around since No Way Home where Spider-Man's talking to the Hulk and the Hulk calls him Peter. And he goes, "Wait, did you call me Peter?" And he goes, "You made everyone forget. Banner forgot, but I didn't." So like there
Mm.
is a separate being under there.
Yeah, and
But
I
now
hope we get more
since-
of that. But
Now, I'm just wondering. This is just kind of a whole different side tangent, but were they smart Hulk when that spell happened? Or was he still human? Because if they're human, that means Hulk could still remember.
my understanding of that,
We don't know.
my interpretation of that spell was like everybody universe wide forgot about it. I don't think it's just Earth, and I think
Right, but no,
even
I'm
though
just
in
saying.
the comics it's different, I think that spell is like no matter who you are,
Gotcha.
or whatever.
Yeah, because
like,
I feel like
you
in the
don't-
comics they specifically use the word universe one because you're.
and
I
Hulk,
think in
did
the,
Hulk
sorry,
ever interact with Spider-Man besides the battle in Endgame?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe he would have seen the news if he was Smart Hulk. I don't know. Because apparently if you go on Disney Plus to the actual MCU timeline, this is taking place between Moon Knight and Miss Marvel.
Oh, Shang-Chi. It's after Shang-Chi.
Yes,
It's
but specifically, this is between Moon Knight.
yeah.
Like it goes Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel on the Disney Plus official MCU timeline.
Yeah.
Only thing is because Spider-Man isn't going to be on Disney Plus, we don't know officially where that falls in the timeline.
But also, this
Although
episode's kind of a flashback too. So
That's
'cause
also
at
true.
the end
Yeah.
of Shang-Chi, you did see him in the sling in his human form.
So you assume that so I feel like the Shang-Chi post credits takes place. We know it takes place
Before
after
this.
Endgame, so it takes place at some point after Bruce has built that prototype. But also yes, before this incident because his arm's still in the sling, and I don't remember where Spider-Man takes place in conjunction to Shang-Chi.
I think it's after, right? Because it's Christmas. Or, I mean, it starts off probably.
I believe I believe
it
Spider-Man is Christmas 2023.
You mean 2024, 25? Because remember, the MCU timeline is a little bit ahead of
Yes. Okay.
our own
So
timeline.
we do know.
Okay, we're getting way too in the weeds here.
Yeah.
Okay. Endgame happened in 2023, and we know that happens in October. Far From Home is the last day of school, so that would make it June 2024. So yeah, Spider-Man's 2024. So this would be before Spider-Man. So I don't know if they'll ever do something like that in the movies. It's just that I'm using that as an example that, yeah, Bruce's Hulk is very much its own person and personality. And like I said, I believe that Adamaeus Cho's Hulk is the same thing. Jennifer, I keep wanting to say Barbara Walters. Jennifer's. I'm not going to lie. I think I've almost said it like 4 times now. Jennifer's is just her as the Hulk, which is also why like Adamaeus Cho's Hulk is what you think of. It is a giant being. It is massive. Hers is like she goes from like a normal person or even a little bit like she seems a little bit like below average height. You can't always tell on TV because Tom Cruise is like 4 feet tall, but apparently in movies he's like the tallest one on the set.
How tall Jennifer Walters is?
Like as herself, she seemed to be like average to below average height, and then obviously, of course, you get She-Hulk. She's like
6'7".
She's like Amazonian Wonder Woman type of height, but she is not. I can hold the side of a building and people will see who I am. Size like Bruce's Hulk. For
Yeah,
example.
Yeah.
just like I in my head guessed she was 5'3", but the Tatiana is 5'4". So
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So around average height, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is also why, to address like the CGI things I've seen
I
since
thought the
the original
CGI
trailer.
looked. I thought it
CGI did look better than the
good.
trailer. I also think that inherently, because of the, Hulk is this being that is huge enough and massive enough that your mind can kind of be like, oh, he's supposed to look like this and look weird. Kind of the same way Thanos. Well, granted, the CGI on Thanos is incredible. I'm not gonna knock that, but Thanos or the Juggernaut, these giant characters, because they're more creature-like, you're not necessarily going to be as picky. She-Hulk just kind of being a regular person, but a little bit more big and green, I think is almost inherently going to be more. You're going to have a larger chance of it ending up in the uncanny valley just because of the fact that she's not supposed to look that different. She is
Mhm.
supposed to look more human than other Hulks.
Right.
Mhm.
But yeah, I thought the CGI looked, pretty good, much better than the trailer. Not that, and even then, the trailer didn't really bug me from a few weeks ago.
And I think
But
I think I'm also seeing one of the things that was a little bit jarring to me, and it's her hair changing so drastically between the two forms. I think is kind of what threw me off in the beginning when I was watching trailers and stuff, of like almost not comprehending that it was supposed to be the same person, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But I think also, seeing it now like on an actual TV and the CGI they determined to be good enough to put out on Disney Plus rather than a trailer in its full context, I'm pretty okay with it. I'm not seeing any huge glaring issues.
Yeah, and
I'm sure someone on film Twitter right now is taking the one screenshot where something looks off if you look at the right angle and being like, this is the reason the MCU's trash.
where their like internet connection's terrible and it's like blurry or something. But
Yeah.
I really
Marvel
like.
CGI is so bad it's only 480p.
I thought the beginning part where when she first hulks out, and it's almost like it's almost like a monster movie ish where you don't really see
Yeah.
her, because that's like another technique in terms of
The
it was
first two
cool.
times when it happens after the accident and when it happens in front of the bar.
Yeah, in terms of like I thought it was awesome for the storytelling in terms of like, which I want to talk about, like she didn't remember that one, but she remember like after that she's just like in full control of both forms. But that was the first that I wonder if they'll go back to that in terms of
So why she blacked
controlling.
out those first two times?
Yeah, maybe it really was just because like her body was just undergoing that
I
change.
feel
And
like it's
Yeah, that
almost
could
like
be.
I don't want to use the word panic attack but I don't know what other comparison to make. Like it was such an out of body experience that her mind kind of blocked it out.
Mhm.
Or
But
just
after
that
it
much
happens twice,
I would say, or just that much, because if you're thinking like that's gamma's like spreading throughout the body, that's probably like a huge stress on the brain. So probably did pretty much black out.
and I also think it's the fact that she doesn't know what's happening. Whereas when she wakes up in Bruce's house and he's explaining to her, you now have a Hulk or are a Hulk, whatever, I don't know the terminology is.
Yep.
You can Hulk out. She's now understanding what's going on, and so she's going to stay conscious for it.
Yep. I like that transition though, from like the yelling, growling right after she gets out of the death chamber, to then she's just talking normal.
And then she
he's just like
He's just like, it's about $1
he's
million
just like,
worth of.
wait, what? Jennifer? Like, he's just like,
Yeah,
you're there.
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing I really liked, is that they kind of poked fun at some of the sillier stuff they've done with Hulk. Of like, Natasha would say a lullaby to me. She's like, what? He goes, I can't explain it.
Okay, let's dive into this. So, Hulk's really upset about the $1 million, or is it 5 million? Millions,
Oh,
It's
just
millions of dollars worth of equipment.
right? So she jacks up this equipment, right? Bruce probably isn't rolling in the dough again. Where is Pepper Potts and all this, man? What's she doing with all that fortune? She gonna help out Hulk repair his lab? Didn't help out Sam Wilson, man, with the bank loan. What's going on?
I don't know.
Jennifer Walters needs to sue Pepper Potts to get some justice.
What is she, a lawyer or something? But no, I
Pepper
did,
Potts?
no, I do like the way that they kind of did explain that stuff with the Hulk, of like, you know, sometimes Natasha would say me a lullaby. She was like, "What?" And he's also like, most of the time I would black out, or people would basically push me off a jet, so I turned into the Hulk, and I just came back later. I feel like they also explained some other stuff with the Hulk that I'm not remembering, but like,
He said that the one time I stayed a Hulk for 2 years.
yeah, yeah,
The
he talked
one
about
time.
that, but that wasn't even like, I feel like played off as a laugh. That's like, hey, one time this did happen to me for 2 years straight, and so I don't really know if that might happen with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to talk about the biggest reveal of the episode?
Yeah, you know I do.
Okay.
I already knew this fact, but I was surprised not a lot of people
I
did.
was very much of the camp of I was in one of two camps. Steve Rogers was a virgin, or Steve Rogers lost his virginity in those 2 years that he was a fugitive. He grew out the beard, he became a little jaded, and he went, you know what? It's time to get this star-spangled dick wet. But I guess he lost it on the USO tour, which now brings me to a theory I'd like to present. A theory that I will admit
Okay.
I have shot down multiple times.
Okay.
In Captain America, the First Avenger, we get the little, we get the musical number.
Yeah.
We get a montage of him taking pictures with babies, signing autographs. And this really hot chick comes up to him for an autograph. And he's a little speech of her. He's like, hi, do you guys remember this scene?
Not at all. It's been a while since I've seen the movie.
Not particularly, but I mean,
it's in this montage where he's going around the country doing the USO tours. There is a woman who is not one of the USO girls. She's someone that comes up for an autograph that's younger and is like blonde, and he's like flustered talking to her, but she's flirting back. And I think it's the first time someone's ever flirted with Steve Rogers because he was a little bitch baby like 2 days ago.
hey, Peggy was flirting with him before
No,
this.
okay. Now, that actress is the same actress who played Peter Quill's mom. James Gunn has confirmed that is Peter Quill's grandma. And so the theory that people have said for a few years that I have shot down is Captain America fucks her. He then gets that woman pregnant with Peter Quill's mom. Peter Quill's mom then has Peter Quill. And the fact that he has super soldier serum in his DNA is the reason why he was the only one of Ego's kids that was able to hold the celestial gene.
I love it. Let's run with it.
Yeah.
Baby.
Honestly, that's
Let's
just
go.
crazy enough that I'm in.
I'm buying it.
Again, I was of the camp of Steve was a virgin, or Steve did not lose his virginity till 2016 to 2018. But now they're confirming he lost it in the 40s during the USO tour. And I'm assuming it wasn't to Peggy. And I'm also going to assume it wasn't to Natalie Dormer because Peggy then would have actually shot him. I'm going with Peter Quill's grandma, Nana Quill. Quillma, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That I am now a believer of the theory that that's why Peter Quill was able to hold the celestial gene.
Yeah.
That also means that Peter Quill's grandpa is Captain America. He has no idea.
Yeah, I hope they explore that in Guardians 3, man. We had the daddy issues, now we got the granddaddy issues. Old Steve coming back for one last ride.
Yeah, and Steve never interacted with the Guardians outside of Rocket.
Yeah.
And even Rocket, I'm not sure how much he spoke to.
Yeah, I mean they were on the the space.
They had it. Yeah, they had each other for those 5 years, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, Peter and Cap never really interacted.
No.
Yeah.
That's been one of my few complaints of like Infinity War Endgame that I wish we got more combinations. My go-to example I always give is, at the end of Civil War where Cap and Bucky are just fucking beating on Tony at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved in Endgame as they're going through the battle, basically that same scene, but either make one of the of Thanos's kids the person getting beaten in Iron Man, and then make it like Bucky and Drax.
Okay.
I would have loved to see more combinations, but I guess we never got to see the grandson and grandfather meet.
Someday, man. Someday. Multiverse. What if?
I would say what if? Yeah.
What if Peter Quill met his grandpa?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't know who else he could have lost it to. We now know that Captain America fucked. Well, that concludes our episode, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll be here every week for these 9 long episodes of She-Hulk, all of which I believe do have a post-credit scene. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, and stay up to date for all these discussions. We will see you next time. Bye.